Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Joe Cummings, the Chief Executive Officer of the National Soccer Coaches Association of America, and I'm your moderator for this evening's panel. I would like to welcome those here in the audience and those online at NSCAAtv.com. For those of you tuning in online for the first time, the development and debut of NSCAA TV is a wonderful new chapter for our organization. Not only does it provide a dedicated outlet for coaches, student athletes, parents, and fans that enjoy live soccer coverage, but it also extends the reach of our association and the range of services we can provide. Thank you to Kwik for sponsoring tonight's panel session. Following the initial panel discussion and remarks, we will have a short question and answer time period with our panelists. You can send in questions via Twitter to @NSCAA using the hashtag NSCAASS. The format will be is that I will introduce the panelists starting your left, my right, with a brief bio, and then outline for the panelist what it is I would like the panelists to speak on. The topic, as you know, for the weekend deals with player development. And certainly the number of people, the people that we have on the panel will add a great deal to that conversation. Bob Gansler is one of the most successful U.S. national team coaches in history. During his tenure as head coach of the U.S. men's national team, he qualified that team for the 1990 World Cup. His coaching experience at the professional level includes time at Kansas City and Milwaukee of the A-League, where he won league titles with both teams. He was named Major League Soccer's Coach of the Year in 2000, and he is a member of our NSCAA Senior Academy staff. Bob, you have a perspective unlike others on the panel, in that you have seen player development at each end of the spectrum here in the United States, where it was when you began your coaching career and where it is now. I'm going to ask you to touch on that. And we understand that each one of the topics could be far-reaching, wide-ranging topics, but we've asked them to give you maybe 3, 5, 7 minutes on that particular topic. So, Bob, if you wouldn't mind beginning.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe. Don't equate old age with wisdom, right? As I said in the session this morning, I've had an opportunity to play and to coach at just about everything that's come along in the last 40, 50 years in this country, and I feel tremendously blessed. But nevertheless, it's an opinion, it's how I view it, and for sure there are other thoughts and there should be other thoughts. But I would like to summarize it with the United States in soccer has come a tremendously long way in a relatively short period of time. This was an ethnic sport. When my father brought the family to Milwaukee, Wisconsin in 1952, I was 10. There was no youth soccer to be played. There were men's ethnic teams that played and revisited World War II because there were German teams and Hungarian teams and English teams and Serbian teams and Croatian teams, et cetera, right? But that's all there was. I didn't play for 5 years. I didn't play soccer, right? And in a way that slowed me and others down in terms of our development. But then the way we got to learn, it was usually a matter of the senior teams needed some bodies, and then you got a chance to play. So first thing I ever played was left back. How did I know? I walked into the dressing room, and the only shirt that was left was number 3, because not too many people wanted to play left back. All right. So that's the way I learned. That's the way youth development took place at that time. But I think we made giant leaps in terms of youth development, and coaching education went hand in hand with this. More than a decade later, that Mark Kramer, who I mentioned this morning, came as a FIFA Globetrotter and started formal coaching education in this country. And we had the Select Team program, which was the forerunner to the ODP program, and now we've got the Academy program. And we have done, I think, much, right, to help this game along. I'm talking about us, in coaching education, in coaching, in terms of helping these players to develop to where Tony came through this program, and he can give you insights from a player's perspective. So there's nothing to be smug about, but the fact that whether it was qualifying for the first World Cup, Youth World Cup in '81, that was the under-19s, they were called under-19s rather than under-20s at that time, in Australia since that time, and then the senior team, and now our 17s and our 20s, and obviously the ladies have done even a more impressive job, right? One of the factors that played into that, and I know Tony DeCicco is around here, and he could address that even better than I. But the Title IX situation, the fact how schools are an intricate part of player development in all sports, which is unlike, and I'm not telling you anything that you don't know, which is unlike it is anywhere else in the world. Right? The Title IX situation was a tremendous help and continues to be a tremendous help in the absence of a professional league that is able to sustain itself. We trust that this version is going to have more good fortune, right, in helping to develop our young ladies. So I wander about a little bit because there's a lot to be said, but I think we're on the right track. Some of you we've met before, and we've conversed a little bit over the last couple of days while we were together here. You know that we talk about a soccer evolution. We are on a good evolutionary trek in terms of getting better at this game, where a lot of folks in the world had a substantial head start. So we've come along well because of the good work of folks like yourself, and nothing to be smug about, because we've got a ways to go yet. But while we improve in all aspects, right, and it's always about, those 4 things, those 4 pillars that we in coaching education talk about, and you talk about maybe to your players, those 4 things that prop up the soccer player: the technical end, the tactical, the physical, the psychological, right? We've got work to do in all of those areas, but one of the things that I think need to be aware of, because we sometimes get off the track on that, is I do think no matter what kind of Americans we are, I'm a German-Hungarian American or a Hungarian-German American, I know I'm American. I was born someplace. My tradition is some other place. Tony can tell you what his background is, but I think we Americans have some qualities that we should not ignore, right? And sometimes we do that because of coaching or coaching education, and we got to play the beautiful game the way the Brazilians do it, or the way the Spaniards do it, or whoever is on top of the scale at that particular time. We have, right, just like we talked about it this morning, you as a coach, you need to coach within your own personality. we as a country need to play within our own collective personalities, right? And we have some things, right, in the psychological realm, and if we're blessed physically like Tony was and others, it's okay to use all of that. And sometimes we want to push those kind of things aside, right? You refine what you have, you camouflage what you don't have, you are aware of it, and you continue to work on it, but in the whole process, you are yourself, right? And we need to be ourselves and as soccer developing countries. All right, so I'm meandering about, and I usually do. It's a privilege of the Alzheimer generation, right? But that's the way I feel about it, and I think we have done awfully well in a relatively short period of time, and we will continue to do even better. Thank you.
Each one of our panelists will probably have a few nuggets along the way. Bob's is a good evolutionary track was the point that he was making through this. We are on a good evolutionary track. Tony Sanneh is a highly decorated retired American soccer player and is currently the president and executive director of the Sanneh Foundation. After a productive college career, Tony decided to take his talents to the next level in pursuit of a professional career. In this professional career, spanned 15 years, Tony would go on to play at the highest level on 2 continents. Additionally, Tony made 43 appearances with the United States men's national team. In his time with the U.S. men's national team, Tony was an integral part of the 2002 World Cup team and also won the CONCACAF Gold Cup in 2005. Tony, we'd like you to speak about your steps along the way to becoming a national team player and how that development took place.
Thank you, Bob. I am from St. Paul, Minnesota, and my dad was born in West Africa, but I didn't grow up playing soccer, I guess, until the fifth or sixth year of my life. I went to visit my dad's family in the Gambia. And when I came back, I went to summer school, and I was supposed to go for a month, but I ended up staying for 2 years. I don't know how that happened, but I forgot all English. So I was behind, and my mom put me in summer school. And I had an hour in the day to fill. And she said, "Why don't you play soccer class? Didn't you play that in Africa?" And I was like, "I don't want to go to soccer class." And I did. And I met a man there, his name was Buzz Lagos, and he said, "Well, you have some skills that these other kids don't." And he invited me to come and play on his club team. And I did, and I met my best friend at the time. We were both 10 years old, and I'll tell you more about that story, but we played together. Through that, I joined our team quickly, then I ended up playing on the ODP team. So we played against some of Ian's teams along the way. Growing up, in Minnesota, I would say I was sort of the sidekick. My best friend was really talented, and we had a lot of support. And one of the things that Bob mentions that we have is, we do have a system built for success if we tap into it. And growing up, I had hundreds of people that took me under their wing and just saw something about me and offered to help me along the way. And part of it was because they saw something in me. Part of it was I'm blessed. My best friend's dad, like Mr. Lagos, he did a lot for me as well. So growing up, I was going to go to college in Wisconsin with Ian, actually. I don't think I formally committed, but I told everyone I was going. And my best friend's older brother went to Milwaukee, which Bob recruited him. And I don't know if Bob had anything to do with this, but me and my best friend had one school on the list together, so we decided to scratch our plans and go to college together. So I went to Wisconsin, Milwaukee. I ended up being an All-American. I had some difficult times there because I was very, you could say, bullheaded. And I knew I was going to play soccer, but I didn't really understand the hierarchy thing and why I was having to sleep on the floor on road trips. Like I said, that supportive family that took care of me, as growing up in Minnesota, at 16, the adults around us brought us up to the men's team, like Bob when he got his first chance. So they said, well, you can help us. And we'd come there, we'd play 15 minutes a game, 20 minutes a game. And then by the time we were 19, we were playing 90 minutes a game. And actually, that helped because we had a team from Minnesota. Actually, we won the 1990, I think, national championship for club soccer. And we probably only had 4 Division I players on it at a time. So very different from a small town. After college, I decided I was going to go to Europe. I did it on a summer trip. And I went to Belgium, and I got hurt, and I came back. But I didn't stop playing, but I didn't make other plans. And I toiled around playing indoor soccer, which was a great experience for me because we had no other real professional leagues. So that's where all the professionals were. And you grew up really quickly there. Being an All-American college and being able to push everyone over and do what you want. Guys that make their careers grinding it out teach you to be a professional very quickly, and you learn your place on a team. After that, Major League Soccer started. I played for the Milwaukee Rampage, then the Minnesota Thunder, and I knew I wanted to play. Me and Sunil didn't get along so well. And he said everyone in the US ISL at the time was kind of a capped number. And I thought, well, I know I'm going to go high. Why do I have to play for such a little bit? And so I said, I'll just sit out and go to Europe. And luckily for me, DC United started off 1-6, and Bruce Arena gets his way. So he argued with the league to bring me in there. And it's interesting because while I was in Minnesota, I wasn't playing all the time because we had a lot of good forwards, so I would rotate. And I come to DC United, and Bruce says, the league won't let me cut this player unless I play him. So will you play midfielder? And I played midfield for 1 game, and then Samson at the time says, you could be one of our great next midfielders playing defense. So it's funny how things happen. And, I ended up going to Europe after that, and very pig-headed, but very positive. And in the end, one of the qualities Bob mentioned is I think Americans have a positive way about us, and I think we understand the game. I think we can push each other competitive, but really push each other. The only other thing I have to say about my career in player development, and I think that we risk doing sometimes, is we have a win-now attitude. And I graduated high school at 18, and I was a freshman when I turned 19. I look at it the other way. What would have happened if I would have been really smart, if I would have been graduated a year early? If I graduated high school at 17 or 16 and went to high school when I was 17, college, I would have been told I couldn't play, By 26, 27, I was still in the top 11 players on the national team. But because I grew late and I wasn't at that point, I think too many young Americans maybe give up their dreams or try other sports because somebody's telling them that they're not good. And we have this mentality of having to be on the premier team, the select team, so we're jumping around. And we really have to look at developing yourself and having that confidence, to make it in time. And I think we also have to look at the qualities of the players and worry less about, winning the trophies at such an early stage. So that's my involvement. I had these guys helping me along the way. I played at every stage. I think my best attribute, other than being, physically very gifted, was, I could walk in the locker room the first day, and I looked around that locker room, and I would go over to the coach. Oh yeah, by the way, if you need somebody, I've played this position before. And I would basically pick out the weakest person on the team. And in many cases, it allowed me to play more. I played 9 positions from the beginning of national team games. I started 6 different Champions League games in position-wise. But I did get caught a couple of times in my career where I was the guy that played every position and everyone's healthy and I didn't have a spot.
Thank you, Tony. The nugget from that one is, from a player development standpoint, is his mother saying, "Why don't you go to soccer class?" I think we probably owe her as much of a debt of gratitude for that one line, saying to Tony, "Why don't you go to soccer class?" Might be the story in his player development. Our third speaker is our Director of Coaching Education, Ian Barker, who came to us from Macalester College in St. Paul, Minnesota, where he had been the coach. He also was the assistant coach at the University of Wisconsin in 1995 when they won the national championship. He has served in a capacity as the Director of Coaching and Player Development for Minnesota Youth Soccer also. And as I said, he is now presently the Director of Coaching Education for the NSCAA. Ian, we'd like you to discuss your part in this process as a college coach, a DOC at a state organization, and now as the DOCE for the NSCAA, and the role that coach education plays in the overall player development scheme.
Okay. Well, to college soccer first. I was fortunate enough on Wednesday to attend the MLS All-Star Game live. Roma and Michael Bradley are very, very good. But there was a host of former American collegians playing for the MLS All-Stars. And I would put it to you from observing that, Gonzalez, Zuzi, etc., that it is possible to become a top player and develop and possibly go to Europe and play, or go somewhere else and play in our American college system. So I'm very comfortable with that statement. NCAA Division III, 2-1, NAIA, junior college. Tony is a product of the US American college soccer system and won 46, 47 caps across the ball that helped us beat Portugal in the 2002 World Cup. So I'm positive about American college and what it can do for us in terms of development. I think the challenge, and this would not just be to the college structure, is anywhere that we prohibit players from playing for any reason that is not associated with their health and well-being will ultimately stifle development, whether that's high school rules, college rules, association rules. And so the challenge is, for those of us working in the college game, trying to develop players, is expanding our opportunity for contact time, expanding the opportunity for players to compete. And I was fortunate in my most recent college post where I was a Division III coach, and we were allowed to have a junior varsity. So my squad of 36 players were all active in competitive fixtures as well as a robust training regimen. Now, what is good news is that we have the college track, but we also have academy systems, and we have MLS teams pulling players prior to the college. So now there becomes more pathways. Young Americans can go straight to Europe. Young Americans go into an MLS structure. They don't have to go to college to further their careers. College is now just one of the additional pathways. But I will say that I believe that the American college game remains an important part of our soccer culture, and I think it will continue to remain so, and I think we will continue to see women in the NWSL, young men in the MLS that come through our colleges. They might only stay 2 years, 3 years, but they will continue to do that. So that's my overall intro onto the college. Very quickly, state DOC. I was the state DOC in a very good state in terms of people that wanted to learn, which was the key. So much like the audience today, I was fortunate that we put on programs and people showed up, which was fantastic. Interestingly, if you went to Rochester, Minnesota, and you did the care and prevention lecture, and they were all neurosurgeons, it was a tough lecture for a guy like me to give. Equally so, the technology lecture and the other half of the room are IBM executives, tough lecture to give, so then I just dealt with 442. We had 4,000 coaches. So my colleague John Curtis and I would educate, we'd get out there, we'd see a bunch of those 4,000 over the course of time, and then 2 or 3 years later, it was almost another 4,000. And what we found was that a lot of our coaches in a state environment, state DOC environment, are on what I would call more of a horizontal track. They want information every year, every couple of years. They're not looking to go to the next level or go to a higher award. They just want continuing education, and they're very comfortable in that more horizontal form of coach education. And I think as state director, that's part of your responsibility, is not to always be accelerating people on in coach ed, but helping them continue to do a really good job under 10, under 12, and then they go back to under 10, under 12, and they stay in that target window. So the work that is done right now primarily through US Youth Soccer in coach education delivery in the state associations, in addition to what we do with the NSCAA, I think is fantastic, and I'm, again, very positive about that. And then finally to the overall role of coach ed, which Bob is certainly more qualified to speak to in a historical perspective than I am. I think we've got formal coach ed. You go to badges, you go to qualifications. Semi-formal, our audience tonight, listening, taking ideas, not necessarily going to be evaluated or tested on your participation this evening. And then when this concludes, you head to a bar, you head to a restaurant, you meet for a coffee in the lobby, and you just talk about the game, and you catch a little bit of the games on TV. So I think there's many, many ways that we think of should think of coach education, that unfortunately we get very obsessed about the whole badge thing. What coach education tells us, though, if the person comes to you, NSCAA Advanced National or a USSF B or whatever the award is, it tells you they gave their time to attend the program. It tells you somebody gave the money for them to attend the program. It doesn't tell you anything about their honesty or their integrity or their overall decency. So if I was a parent or a club DOC, I would want to see qualifications for my coaches, but I'd also want to know what type of person they are and if they fit the group of children, the group of young adults that I was giving them to. So coach education, badges, qualifications, awards, it tells us something, but I don't think it tells us the whole picture of what the coach could potentially be or do. I think what's critical, though, about education done well, and how I see education done well is three things. Good instructors, solid material, which we have in abundance in this country, and then candidates with an open mind to listen to the instructors, embrace the material, pick and choose what they can use. I think if you have those three things, the instructors, the candidates, and the material, you have a robust coach education program, which I, again, believe we do in this country. And what could be a positive about the coach education in the overall development of the player? Tony, more recently than most of us, was an elite player. A 2-hour training session, which seems to go on without end, and then you walk away without feedback, is not a very good experience for an amateur, youth player, elite player. A 75-minute training session, lots of energy, good organization, lots of repetition, and then some feedback from the coach and a feeling that you improved during that 75 minutes, and you want to come back and give 75 minutes the next day. And that's where good quality coach education helps players. It helps us in our organization, our content delivery, the feedback we give, and players want to keep coming to play. And I think when we're talking about player retention in our sport, a lot of it can be done by effective coach education. So, much to Bob's summary, I think we have an amazing amount to be proud of in this country in terms of what we've achieved. With a massive country, with starting slightly behind many of the top countries in South Central America, Europe, etc. And I think we should not be smug, for sure, a word that Bob used, but I think we should be thinking glass half full, maybe just slightly more than half full, and continue to push forward with that. And I think if we do that with debate, with intelligent discussion, with challenges, and I thought Alexi Lalas was fantastic last night about saying it's one opinion, we'll have different opinions, but let's discuss them and share. I think if that is the spirit of soccer in this country and the further development of the game for the players' benefit and certainly through coach education, I think we'll all be the better for it. So that's my thumbnail.
Thank you, Ian. As do many of us involved in this game, Ian pointed out in his early remarks how positive he continues to feel about the contributions of the college game and what it provides to player development in the United States. Tosh Farrell is the former head of international football development and technical coordinators of the English Premier League club Everton FC. Tosh is the creator of the Everton Way, which was the first training program that was made readily available on the internet. Additionally, he is responsible for partnerships that Everton have made with Everton FC America and Ontario Soccer Association. He is presently head of the Tosh Farrell Academy Development Program in Amesbury, Massachusetts. For Tosh, with the experiences of having been involved on both the English side and now the American side, would you please give us some perspective on player development and how it differs and what you've noticed working in both of those countries?
I can wait here all night, can you? And the word I use is patience, just to sit and watch something develop. And when I look at when I'm looking at the English player or the English system to the American player or the American system, I feel patience is the word or the part of the puzzle that may not be applied. What I want to say to back that up is when we start a programme at Everton, the new academy system had just been put in place. So we went from Centre of Excellence, where players signed associated schoolboy forms at 14, and then they came into Centre of Excellence. That got changed into an academy programme, where players and the hour-and-a-half rule was put in place, and academic education was introduced. And we started with putting people in place who had to be patient and watch something grow. And I was in a position of being put into the under-11s coach. Now, what that was looking after everything from 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. I didn't coach the under-12s. I didn't work with the under-13s. I was never going to be a youth coach. I sort of had a vocation, or I felt I had, or somebody recognised that little bit in me that said, that coach would be okay in that world. Only experience of working with young children was being a parent. 2 girls, lucky for them. Lucky for them, lucky they weren't boys, because I mightn't have had or developed the patience. The patience is when a young player comes in, and at the time a lot of young players came in, so Jack Rodswell, Callum McManaman, Wayne Rooney, all these players came through at 7, 8 and 9. But rather than move up with them, you have to let them go. And that experience that you gained working in those years and spotting the players that come in may have helped Tony, because I'm hearing how he was maybe overlooked at times. It's that potential, maximising potential. I bet you every person in here could spot a Messi, could spot a Rooney, could spot a Ronaldo. But who could spot the Kakas? Who could spot the Callum McManamans of this world? That's the bit that I feel is missing when I try to join the 2 programs up. Athletically, mentally, everything fantastic. The American soccer player, everything that the English are looking for. We're looking for the athleticism. We're looking for those mindsets. We don't have to look for the technical player so much, because they're playing it every day. Here, I feel that patience to develop what I've made a career of attention to detail. Are we applying that in our clubs, at our clubs? And I feel that's where the coach education element of everything is so important. I never played at the greatest level, but the sad part about it was I played my best level as I got older. So at 36, 37, I walk on a pitch against Manchester United. Admittedly, it was the youth team. Admittedly, I was an overage player. But Paul Scholes was in the opposite side. John Curtis was in the opposite side. And I couldn't get the ball off them. And some think, why can't I get the ball off them? These are young players. Because the technique that they showed, the development program that they'd been through, they were just becoming to the top now. The cream was rising. And I feel that in our programs in the US, because it's a program that I'm involved now and I've been here for 3 years, we started from scratch. We get buy-in from the parents to say, look, winning versus development, believe me, you've got to win. I appreciate win, don't think that development is a cop-out for losing every Saturday or Sunday. Believe me, you've got to win enough. But if you've got a philosophy and a program and a belief, and you know that it works, you can't be distracted. And I just see at times what I would call reactional coaching. We shipped in 10 goals in a particular game, we're coaching defending, or I'm looking for a new goalkeeper. If we draw 0-0 and we've missed a shed full of chances, it's crossing and finishing this week. Well, it's not how you work. Look at the game, the way the game is going now. You're chasing the ball, and the ball's gone. Decisions are made like chess, 3 or 4 moves in advance now because the game's that fast. How fast is this mind working for today's modern soccer player? How quick and how accurate, and the technical competence, how high has that got to be able to play the game in the manner that it's got to be played today? And I'm telling you, it's getting harder and harder, and the standards are getting higher and higher. And I feel that we have to work more on developing technique, and we need to take a bold stance as coaches, and maybe let my daughter go on to the next coach. Pass them on. I love the bones of it, but I know I should let go because that coach can offer them something that I can't. But I brought them to that level. And, Alex Ferguson has a fantastic name as player development. David Moyes has a fantastic name as player development. But ask them what players they've developed. They've given the players the chance, and they've rounded them off and put them into the game and give them an opportunity. Because without talent, without opportunity, there's no point having talent. But they were brave enough to put them in there. They light the candles. We bake the cake. And what part of the cake are we baking? And that's where I just feel that if in the US we had coaches who were designated and kept that experience into relevant areas of development, we could move quicker than what we're doing in development. I always thought a program worked up, not down, and I have a little bit of beef, if that's the word my English terminology is. When the academy program started here in the MLS, surely it would have made more sense to run the under-12s group than the under-13s group and work your way up, as opposed to working 18, 16 down. It's just my thoughts. England, Europe, we have a tradition and a history. It's still a relatively new sport here in the US. And when you do look at the ground that's been covered over the last 40, 50 years, it's significant progress. I think the next part has got to be coach education. And we've really got to now handpick, give out the word to get coaches to embrace an age range, and whether that's 7s to 11s or 11s to 14s, and develop them to be as good as they can be. And rather than lose them we need people to be able to tap into that experience and say, what did you see in that player that we never seen? And that's that brings me back to this word of patience. And that's my take on it.
Thank you, Tosh. Wait for something to develop. His nugget, his words. Don Scott has been the fitness coach for the U.S. women's national team since 2010. And as part of that responsibility, makes certain that each and every player that comes through that program puts in maximum effort. Her responsibilities with the U.S. women include the delivery, coordination, and monitoring of the team's strength and conditioning, as well as the nutritional and exercise science strategies for the team. Scott also does work with the NWSL clubs to monitor the fitness of those national team players, as well as working with U.S. Soccer Federation's youth girls and women's national teams. Don, if you wouldn't mind talking about how dramatic the change has been over the past few years in regards to a player's development going beyond just the skills required.
Okay, thanks, Joe. So my kind of main area role with the women's team and with US Soccer is the fitness and conditioning, and then all things sports science with the team. So that's kind of monitoring of training loads, impact of programs, and then all recovery off the field as well. When I studied, which seems like a long time ago now, 20 years ago, when I first did my sports science degree, it was kind of unheard of to study sports science in England. So I got my qualification. And then in 2001, there was the opportunity to actually work at the English Football Association. They expanded their medical department, and at the time took on board 4 sports scientists and 4 physios, or trainers as you call them here. Interestingly, just kind of listening to the 4 great speakers speak before me, and it's interesting because at Manchester United now, 3 of the sports scientists who I started at the FA with in 2001 now work at Manchester United. Tony Strudwick, Richard Hawkins, Mark Hulse. So when I started with England, there was pretty much nothing in terms of sports science provision. Those 3 guys on the male side developed some of the foundations there, and similar, I did the same on the women's side. At the time, I had to develop a training culture with the England women's players. They were amateur. To this point, they're still kind of amateur or semi-professional. So at the time, we developed a training culture, sports science, in 2009, we reached the final of the European Championships with the team. In 2010, I was then lucky enough that Pia Sundhage, the current US women's national team head coach at the time, approached me to come and work with the US team, which was obviously a major pull to work with the team ranked number 1 in the world, and that was just part of it. When I arrived with the team was already physically fit. They had a fantastic attitude, determination, so competitive, and I kind of knew that anyway because they'd beat us a few times when I worked with England. So it wasn't about having to develop a training culture. It was more working education off the field. What was their recovery, which at the time when I came in 2010 was pretty much not a lot going on there. So the whole sports science package wasn't there. Although the players did train, we kind of tweaked the training, and now there's a lot more emphasis in terms of heart rate loads, GPS loads, distance covered, high intensity distance. So they obviously still train with the same attitude, but we now make it a lot more scientific, a lot more individualized. So Alex Morgan has a totally different program to Abby Wambach. And again, through monitoring the players, obviously fitness levels improved initially. We had improvements up to the World Cup in 2011. Similar, we had a big jump in fitness again before the Olympics in 2012. And again, that's testament to the kind of dedication of the players to take on board that extra education. They could have thought, we've got a British person coming in to advise us, but you know, on the success stage in terms of the women's team, they'd obviously achieved a lot more than I had, but they took it on board. They constantly want to improve, better themselves. I've had an input in terms of sports science on some of the coaching licenses, again, in England and in the US. In England, initially when I started, there was no sports science element module on the coaching licenses, but that's increased kind of over the last 10, 15 years. Just another interesting kind of note, Abby Wambach last year was the FIFA Women's Player of the Year. Right now, and I guess I monitor, so I know she's at the peak of her physical fitness that she's ever been, especially over the last 5 to 10 years. She's one of the ones who, education-wise, she's now looking after herself on the field, off the field, doing the right kind of conditioning. She's playing pain-free for the first time in about 5 or 6 years. When she was younger, she'll admit she didn't do all of the things that go with, for me now, what you need to do at the top level. She didn't look after herself off the field. Her conditioning could have been better. When she was growing up, 5, 6, 7, she didn't have the support and the input that you guys can now offer from a coaching point of view, from a sports science, the full package. And for me right now, the young players coming through with the input resources they've got, they should be, from a physical, being selfish, from a physical point of view, they should be better, fitter than the current players we have. From the sports science with the US teams, we're now looking to extend and introduce the kind of sports science package support to the youth teams as well. So initially we're starting a lot of education. And for me, that's a key word. And Tosh mentioned education is a big word. I think it's a big word for coaches, for parents, guardians, for players, to make sure that we're giving the players the best possible chance to succeed and kind of tap into everything. And just my final note is, thinking and having done some work with the US U17 US team over the past 2 weeks, and just the input, the strides they made just in 5 days of support with them, it's exciting for me to think about how good the US women's national teams could be on all levels if we get all these little pieces right and kind of spread out to kind of all the players.
Thank you, Dawn. Dawn's words of wisdom are under the title of education, except it's education off the field, trying to have players understand how important it is in their development, not just what they do on the field, but off the field. We have a number of questions that have come in via Twitter, and usually as the moderator, when you get to this point, you pose the question, you look to your right or left. If someone wants to handle the question, they will acknowledge that. If they want nothing to do with that question, they usually put their head down like this and look away from the moderator, depending upon the difficulty of the question. So we'll see how many are ready to step up. Coach Derek M.C., is there a way to hold coaches more accountable for their coaching? I see way, and he bold print, capital W, capital A, capital Y, way too many coaches focused on winning. See this awkward moment when I look to my right and no one feels like they want to raise their hand?
I'm there.
Tosh?
I'll chip in. It's what you define as winning. I mean, if you've got a program, you're following a program, and the players have been working on a particular aspect, and they're applying that in the game, you've won. It's that simple. And over a period of time, if all these little aspects are introduced to the game, the result, usually comes with the development program if it's any good. One quick win. Everton played Liverpool at under 11s 16 years ago. 11-0. Liverpool won. But we won that game. Because in that game, there was a particular player, Wayne Rooney. He's the only one from that group who went on to reach the heights he has. That's a win. Now, right now, this winning and losing mentality is just hindering your development. And I think if you have objectives and you're reaching those objectives, and Dawn touched on a great point in terms of it's not coaching player. This is a three-pronged attack. You've got to work with the parents. If the parents are informed about what your objectives are and aims for the programme, and they buy into it, and as long as you're meeting those objectives, aims and objectives over periods of time, what have you got to worry about? You do not give people a reason to stay in your programme. You give people a reason to leave.
Bob?
Yeah, just let me add something before I forget, you know? There's
That's all right, Barry. Don't worry about it. Fred.
There's so many folks up here speaking such a nice English. And over the years, there have been a lot of English folks I didn't really care for much. But it's okay, right? The reason I didn't care for them is because, you know, way back when I played in something called the NASL. I don't know whether you know about that. There were a lot of folks who came from England, right? And one of the traits that they had, they always talked about, well, back home. Well, back home, Jackson, is here, right? When you play in this country, as these folks here, they've committed to this country. This is where they want to be. My father brought me and said, you know, never forget where you came from, but know where you are. Okay? So once you buy into us, right? This is magnificent. Tosh, patience, right? We've said that for quite a while. I'm glad we are on the same wavelength. This thing about winning at all costs, it's nothing new, right? And we're all part of it, right? So when you are a coach, right? You can have input on this. One of the things that you have what you have to educate are the parents, right? As silly a thing, when you meet your new team, what should be the first step? I have miffed a lot of parents by doing this. My first meeting was with the parents. The kids weren't there, and we just talked. We talked about expectation. We talked about what is success, right? It might be 3 passes consecutively, and that might be midway through the season. That's success, right? It's a sad commentary on soccer in America. It wasn't always that way, right? There was no youth soccer when I came, and somewhere along the line, they had to put the parents to the other side of the field. That's a hell of a statement, right? Okay? But we as coaches, we can influence the parents too. And one of the things that I do after we talk about what expectations are, what success means, et cetera, I do tell them beforehand, you can play barefoot or you can bring some sneakers. Then we play. The parents play, right? Okay? The parents play so they have an appreciation of what Susie and Sammy might be asked to do and are getting from you as the coach, right? Okay, I think we have to educate the parents in order to buy into this, right? Because and sometimes we coaches, we are the enablers as well. Anyone here suffer from termininitis? Right? That's 1 practice a week and 8 games on the weekend, right? You do not develop players by playing multiple games on weekend and having no practice. Oh, they're tired. Now, well, we'll get together on Thursday for pizza, and then we'll arrange the next tournament on the weekend, right? So there's all sorts of little things. And we not only can, I think we have to play a part as coaches, right? And you know your clientele the best, the club you work for, the people that send their kids to you, right? You have to educate them, right?
We'll go to one more from Tank, FU Tank, FU Tank Soccer. Hold on. Time out. Let's go. Can we go to the edit room for a minute? It says, must be Florida University Tank Soccer, I guess. How can we encourage more young athletes? I'm going to go to Tony. I'm going to actually ask Tony to take this one. How can we encourage more young athletes to commit to soccer at a younger age?
I mean, I don't think you can ask him to. The player's got to have a passion for it, and I think it becomes the surroundings that you put him in. And if he's passionate about the game and he develops friendships in it, and it's a positive experience, he'll be more likely to stay. I mean, you know, we are competing against other sports, and I believe that young men and women should be well-rounded up to a certain point. But I don't think you can. I think trying to force them one way too early, you know, pulls them in the wrong direction. I think you got to create an environment where you don't need to ask them, and they're going to stay on their own.
Anyone else wish to add to it?
I'm not completely convinced that it's necessary to get young players to commit to the sport earlier and earlier and earlier. I think it's actually a question that's been asked a couple of times just recently in Kansas. When should I put my kid into the next elite program? And this is a bit of a hokey answer, but I kind of believe in it. When you look out the window and you see your child playing with some other kids and they're playing soccer more than they're playing anything else, might be an indication it's the time that they're willing to commit to more time and energy. Bob alluded to having a 5-year break from soccer, and he played for the national team and the Olympic team. Tony wasn't playing soccer full-time, and he's a decorated international. So I might be, with all due respect to FU Tank, I'm not sure it's necessary to get them to commit to that degree.
Can I add one thing?
Certainly, may.
Okay. I mean, to that effect, I mean, I was an all-state basketball player. I played tennis and ran track. And it goes back to the first question as well, letting the parents off the hook. But it's also the coaches. Part of the reason why I went to the nonprofit world was I don't charge any child for anything, so no parent can come and tell me anything. You can come or you can go, you know. You know, it's free. And I think now, at younger ages, we're saying you need to play soccer all year round. We had volunteer coaches when I was a kid. Now we have full-time coaches. Well, guess what? If you don't play all year round, I don't have a job all year round. And I think selfishly we make some decisions on what's best for the coach and not the child. And a young child playing any sport, I mean, there's a reason why I ran like a 4.4 and could jump high. It's because I played different sports, and it helped me grow as an athlete. And that was probably my biggest advantage, was my athleticism. So I think we really need to decide what's best for the child and not what's best for the coaches.
Tony, I've stood beside you, and I don't think I'd venture trying to tell you anything at any time anyway, because of that athleticism you just described.
But his mother did.
But his mother did, yes. The next NSCAA TV broadcast will be the inaugural NSCAA Weekly College Highlights and Rankings Show, which will be on Tuesday, August 13th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Please tune in for the release of the 2013 college preseason rankings. Beginning with Bob, good evolutionary track. Tony, we thank his mother for saying, why don't you go to soccer class? And maybe that's how many players do begin. Ian talked about the positive contributions that the college game provides. Tosh gave us the word patience and said, let's let that happen, let something develop. And then Don spoke about the education off the field for the players' development is as important as what happens on the field. Bob, Tony, Ian, Tosh, and Don, thank you all very much.